So if you've been following AI intelligence, for the last few years, we've kind of gotten used to the top models being in that gifted human range.
Right, around an IQ of 130.
Exactly, and that's already amazing for a machine. But today, well, we're basically tearing up that whole benchmark.
Uh-huh.
We are diving into some pretty huge claims that AI fluid intelligence has just launched itself straight into the super genius zone. We're talking estimated IQs of 170, maybe 180.
And this isn't just a small step up, it's a radical change. It decouples the raw size of a model from how well it can actually reason.
And the company we're talking about is Poetiq.
That's right, an AI research startup, and their whole mission is, and I'm quoting here, traversing the frontier of superintelligence. They're not trying to build a bigger engine.
They're building a better gearbox.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really get into the claims, the technical details behind Poetiq's new state-of-the-art result. They did it on the ARC-AGI benchmarks, which are famously difficult.
The toughest test of machine generalization, really.
And we need to figure out how they pulled this off and, how that score actually translates into these just astonishing human IQ numbers.
Look, if you only take one thing away from this, it should be this. The breakthrough is two things at once. It's not just superhuman intelligence.
Right.
It's achieving it with incredible efficiency, computational leverage. They're making this super complex reasoning smarter and at the same time, much, much cheaper.
Okay, let's unpack this. We got to start with the test itself, ARC-AGI, Abstract Reasoning Corpus. Can you just, paint a picture for us? What does this test actually look like?
Absolutely. So try not to think of it like a language test. It's more of a pure nonverbal puzzle.
Visual.
Completely visual. The system sees grids of colored blocks, right? And it has to figure out the hidden rule that changes an input grid into an output grid. It's a pure test of generalization from just a few examples.
And Poetiq specifically targeted ARC-AGI-2. Why is that distinction important?
Because ARC-AGI-2 is the real gatekeeper. It's designed to stop AI from just, memorizing common patterns. It tests if the AI can actually think flexibly and apply concepts it has never, ever seen before.
Okay, so what do they score? I need some context for the number.
They hit a new state-of-the-art, between 60 and 70% on the public evaluation set.
Which might not sound that high to some people.
It might not, but here is the context. The human baseline, what a smart person can get on these incredibly hard puzzles, is right around 60%.
So, they passed it.
They passed it, conclusively. This is the first system to demonstrate explicit superhuman reasoning on one of our hardest generalization metrics.
That's a huge psychological hurdle to cross. And you mentioned computational leverage. Poetiq says they're redrawing the Pareto frontier.
Right.
For those of us not deep in optimization jargon, that basically means changing the trade-off between how good it is and how much it costs, right?
Exactly. It means they're getting top-tier accuracy for a rock-bottom cost. Before, to even get close to 60%, you needed a huge amount of compute. Poetiq's approach is just fundamentally more efficient. It relies on structured reasoning, not brute force.
And I just say, I appreciate the transparency here.
Yeah.
The sources confirm the full code is open sourced on GitHub, MIT license. That's a big deal for credibility. It lets anyone go in and verify this.
It's the ultimate proof. It says they believe in the method, not just the single result. Reproducibility is everything in this field.
Okay, now let's get into the engine room. This is the really key part. When we talk about Poetiq system, we have to be clear about what it isn't.
Right.
They are not rolling out a new GPT-6 or a Gemini 4.
That's the single most important thing to understand. Poetiq is LLM agnostic.
I mean,
They haven't built a new foundation model from scratch. They've built what they call intelligent scaffolding. It's a reasoning framework that sits on top of existing models like GPT 5.1 or Gemini 3 Pro.
so that turbocharger analogy from earlier really holds up. You're not replacing the engine, you're just adding a performance layer to make it do things it couldn't do before.
Precisely. And that lets them focus just on metacognition, on the structure of reasoning, and they get to bypass the billions of dollars and months of training it takes to build a new LLM.
That modularity gives them speed.
And flexibility, yeah.
So tell me about the scaffolding. The system that got the top score is called the Poetiq Mix Agent. What is that? What does it do?
So the Poetiq Mix is basically a dynamic routing system, an ensemble. It looks at a puzzle and then decides the best way to solve it. It might send a really abstract puzzle to, say, GPT 5.1 to generate an initial idea.
Okay.
Then it might send that idea over to Gemini 3 Pro to act as, like, a skeptical peer reviewer.
So it creates an internal debate between the models.
Exactly. It lets the system use the unique strength of different models. Maybe one is better at spatial stuff, the other at writing code. It uses that back and forth to get to a better answer. That's agentic coordination.
And the cost side of this is just, it's astounding.
Back to the efficiency point. The Poetiq mix got that SOTA store for about $50 per task.
$50.
Why is that number so important?
Because it just democratizes access to this level of reasoning. The sources say it's about 6 times cheaper than some of the older GPT-5 attempts at similar scores.
Wow.
So this kind of complex, iterative thinking that used to need a massive budget from a huge lab, now it's potentially accessible to startups, to smaller groups, maybe even individuals.
And when the price of genius drops that much, the pace of everything else just explodes.
Exponential.
Although modularity proves it, too. They said they adapted their system to brand new models like Gemini 3 and GPT 5.1 in a matter of hours.
Yeah, that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
It shows their system doesn't need some secret knowledge about the base model. It just treats the LLM like a tool, like an API call, and focuses entirely on how to structure the thinking process.
Okay, so we've established Poetiq is superhuman on ARC-AGI-2, the hardest visual reasoning test we have.
But now we have to connect that dot, a 60–70% score, to this massive estimated IQ of 170. That feels like a big leap. How do you justify that?
You need a bridge. You need a metric that connects the technical ARC score to, broad human fluid intelligence, and that's where the Norway offline test comes into the picture.
The Norway test. Sounds very specific. What is it?
It is. It's a contamination-resistant IQ benchmark. It's curated by folks affiliated with Mensa Norway, hosted on sites like trackingai.org.
Contamination resistant, meaning it's not all over the internet for the models to train on.
Exactly. That's the key. And its design is almost a perfect match for ARC-AGI-2. It focuses only on unseen matrix reasoning and visual pattern recognition. It's built to probe true generalization.
So what do current models score on this test without any help?
Well, the raw top-tier models, they score somewhere between 114 and 127. So, above average, even gifted, but they hit a wall.
They hit a ceiling. And Poetiq scaffolding is what supposedly breaks through it.
That's the idea.
But I have to push back a little here because I think anyone listening would be skeptical. Taking a performance boost from one test, ARC-AGI-2, and then just slapping it onto another test, the Norway test, feels like you're stacking estimates.
That is the right question to ask. It's a fair critique.
So how confident can we be in this projected 50-point IQ boost?
Well, the confidence doesn't really come from a simple formula. It comes from the qualitative change in how the AI is solving the problem. That 50-point boost isn't an arbitrary number. It's the estimated value added by the scaffolding layer itself.
Okay, then walk me through it. How does the scaffolding generate 50 points of IQ? What is it actually doing?
It's adding what's called test time compute and agentic coordination. So, for example, when it sees a complex matrix puzzle, the Poetiq agent doesn't just guess.
It doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
It generates Python code that simulates its own proposed solution. It runs a little experiment inside itself.
It tests its own hypothesis.
Yeah. It tests the code against the examples it was given. And if the code fails, an error feedback loop kicks in. The agent literally debugs its own code, suggests a new rule, and retests over and over until it synthesizes a program that actually works.
So it's not just thinking, it's building a verifiable program to check its thinking, and then recursively improving that program.
Exactly that. That ability to structure its own problem solving, to use other LLMs for cross-checking, and use code for verification. That's what unlocks those 50 points of fluid intelligence that the raw models are missing.
Okay, so let's get to the numbers, the sheer magnitude of this. Poetiq estimates this scaffolding gives a pretty consistent boost, about 45 to 55 IQ points on tests like the Norway benchmark.
And when you apply that boost to the best base models we have now, the results are, well, they're startling. This is where you cross into that super genius territory.
Give me the numbers. What does the data table say?
All right, take Grok 4 expert mode. It starts out with a really high raw IQ of 127.
Already very impressive.
Very. But you apply the Poetiq boosted estimate, and that model could reach a projected IQ of between 172 and 182.
An IQ of 180.
Right.
That's the absolute extreme of human intelligence, the territory of legendary theoretical minds. That's a genuinely frightening number.
And it's being unlocked not by some new massive model, but just by layering on this reasoning software. Or look at GPT-5 Pro, a bit more of a balanced model. Starts at a raw IQ of 118.
Right.
It's projected to jump to the 163 to 173 range.
Still well into genius territory.
And even a newer model like the Gemini 3 Pro Preview with a raw score of 115 is projected to hit 160 to 170.
So the base model almost matters less than the quality of the reasoning that's layered on top of it.
That is precisely the insight here. The scaffolding is the great equalizer and accelerator. It suggests the real bottleneck wasn't the raw size of the model, but the lack of an efficient, structured way of thinking at test time.
So to sum this all up for you listening, we've just seen a fundamental breakthrough from Poetiq.
A big one.
It's this combination of powerful existing models, GPT-5, Gemini 3, with this efficient external scaffolding. And the result is a system that does two things that seem like they should be contradictory. It is incredibly intelligent, with IQs projected above 170, the super genius level, and yet it's computationally cheap to run. It hits that peak performance for about $50 a task. This changes the entire economics of advanced AI.
And if we look forward, that modular LLM-agnostic design is the most disruptive piece of this puzzle long-term. Poetiq systems prove they can adapt to a new model like GPT 5.1 in just a few hours. So here's the final question for you to really think about. What happens to the rate of AI progress if every single breakthrough in a base model, any new, smarter LLM that comes out next month, can immediately get a 45 to 55-point IQ boost because this kind of scaffolding just bolts right on? That kind of rapid, universal jump in intelligence could fundamentally change the entire timeline for AI advancement.